In a small unassuming town called Fallbrook, a horde of demons has taken over and oppressed the people there. Who's going to set them free? Well, you are. You take on the role of powerful angelic beings who are sent down by God to destroy the darkness. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dice Odyssey. I'm Kaz, and today we're going to be talking about that game called Deliverance. In this game, you take on the role of angelic, powerful beings who are sent to the town of Fallbrook to release the oppressed people there, and if you're playing the campaign mode, to find out the mystery behind what's going on in that town. Now in this video we're going to be talking very specifically about the skirmish mode because this is a prototype. This is in not final condition. Anything I tell you right now, any kind of rules, which we're not going to heavily get into, but any rules or anything like that are subject to change. Everything's subject to change. And also in this game we have standees currently, but in the Kickstarter that's coming out, they're going to be having miniatures. This game is for 1 to 4 players and it goes up to 1 to 2 hours, and then it's also for 14 up. Now, I would categorize this as more of a bit of a dungeon crawler slash skirmish game, and that's really what it is. You're setting up a team of angels to go through, and each angel is going to have their specific type of power. Like one could be more of a healer in the group, one more could be more like a tank, another one could be more like a ranged weaponry person. I'm just going to be here to give you just a general, peek at what the game's about, and also a little bit of my own impressions. Now, straight off the bat, I am a Christian, just gonna throw that out there anyway. I do believe in God, believe in the Bible, and this game is going to naturally speak to me. And I will tell you, and I say this in any video I have about Christian games, I'm always on the lookout for very quality Christian games that I can play with my friends, and sometimes my family, right? And it's actually fun. Unfortunately, there's been a long line of Christian games that just are not fun. They're more informative without being fun, and you kind of need a bit of both at times. And sometimes some games can tend to be a bit too preachy, and if you're trying to reach a wider audience, you can't really do that. But I will tell you, I was not always a Christian. At one time I didn't believe, and the fact is that in a game like this, while yeah, it might not have spoken to me quite as much as maybe a believer at that time, the mechanics and the lore that's in the game and the mystery kind of feel to the game of what's going on, and having the feeling of being a very overpowered being, so to speak, like an angel, taking on a horde of demons, reminds me a little bit of like Constantine, you know what I mean? Because I liked movies like Constantine back in the day. I know not too many people liked it, but I did. And I get it, it's not completely biblically accurate, but I didn't care. I love things like Lord of the Rings. This kind of gives me that feel with what they're trying to do here. Now, depending on player count, your team of angels is probably going to be different in size and scope and abilities. With each angel, you're going to be getting at least 2 actions, and sometimes you're going to be getting some free actions as well. Like it might be like your first movement is free. After that, you pay an action. And each angel is going to have their own specific type of powers that they're able to access. For example, like Michael's got some pretty tank-like powers and strengths that he can access. Each angel is also going to have hit points and specifically different types of abilities according to the symbols on the left side of the player board. And each symbol is going to represent the amount of power or strength each ability is going to use when you activate said power. Now, I have to say one of my favorite angels out of this bunch is Sardius. He's got some interesting powers. For example, like the shifting earth. You can move up to 3 targets on the battlefield, 1 space each, and that's saints, angels, or demons. But what you're trying to do, at least in the skirmish mode, is you're trying to save these saints from being oppressed, and you're trying to rid the battlefield of any demonic presences or princes of darkness, which are kind of like, final bosses. Think of like Final Fantasy Tactics or I guess Warhammer or anything like that. And it's kind of what this feels like, that you're having a bunch of different skirmishes and battles with a bunch of minor minions, and then you finally have to face a final boss of some sort, and that's what you're going to be facing with the princes. And you need to choose wisely, because you're going to have some pretty hefty foes to face when you're actually going against them. For example, you do not want to be down in your health without a healer nearby to help you when that abomination starts smacking you around with its special powers. And so basically you're going in these different phases where angels will move and then demons will move and start fighting, and powers will be activated. And sometimes you're going to be doing skill checks by rolling dice, but the dice play more of a minor role in this, and it's less devastating if you don't get exactly what you want, because typically a lot of your combat is deterministic, which I thoroughly actually enjoyed that aspect. I like dice rolling in games, but I like the fact that because dice rolling can be so random, I like it when dice rolling is not so devastating if you don't get what you need, right? That you have a bit of a way to mitigate that devastation if it doesn't give you what you want. Now you're going to have a horde of different kinds of demonic minions you're going to have to deal with coming out of that battle deck. And they're going to spawn at specific rune spots on the different boards that you set up. And by the way, the boards are modular, so you can kind of set this up to some extent how you want. Now as time goes on, you're going to have darkness cards that come out that are not all flipped over right away, and they give you a chance to actually be able to take care of those, because if they ultimately end up getting flipped over by kind of filling the row, they're going to cause a lot of damage to the angels that are trying to save these saints from being oppressed. And so there are ways that you can mitigate that, and you can actually help remove those darkness cards, but you've got to do it as quickly as you can. And yeah, it can fill up fast if you're not careful. And as it pertains to angelic powers, sometimes you're going to be using tokens called courage. It's almost like a bit of a currency you use to be able to activate some of your powers. And if you don't have enough courage, you're not going to be able to activate that power. Now, the cool thing is some of your powers actually help rebuild your courage meter. Think of a video game, right? You hit something so hard that it actually strengthens you in another area of your character. And so again, in many ways, this felt like a video game that I've played before, you know? And so I really appreciated that. And it's got some RPG-like elements, especially as if you defeat like different kinds of demons and things like that, you know, different things in the game will give you XP, experience points, that you can then use, which is one of my favorite parts of the whole game, that you can then use to go ahead and upgrade your character with different kinds of talents. And these talents typically go in tiers of 3. So, you know, you got tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and it's going to cost you a certain amount of experience points to be able to unlock those talents. And so because each row has multiple types of talents in them, you're never going to have the same character go through the same things every single game. You can actually build your character up with different kinds of passive abilities and active abilities as you go. And to me, that adds heavily into the replayability in this game. Another thing about the game that I found interesting was the prayer cards. Each angel has an ability to pray to God for extra power and strength. For example, like Favor of the Most High. You can add light to each angel's space. Or Victorious Shout. Angels heal 2 damage for each demon that has been destroyed this round and divided it up however you choose. Or Light Up. Choose one. Revive a defeated angel or cast down a darkness card. And there's so many cards in that deck. It is extraordinarily thick. And along the way, you could even pick up Heavenly Treasure, which can help to outfit your angel to be stronger as time goes on. You can use different kinds of armors, weapons, all sorts of fun little things that will add more strength to your already pretty powerful angels in general. For example, you could have something like the Flaming Saber, which is a standard weapon. You could have the Branch of David. You could have Guardian's Plate Mail, which is like a chest armor. You can have a Demon's Bane weapon. And there's all sorts of different kinds of heavenly treasures you can pick up in the game to upgrade your characters kind of how you want to. And again, it feels very RPG-ish. Now again, there's so much more I could talk about in this game. I can't talk too much about the campaign mode because I didn't really receive that. But from what I understand, that's going to be on the Kickstarter. They're going to talk about it a lot there. Basically, what I can tell you is my impressions of the skirmish. I generally speaking gave that to you as I spoke about it. But I have to say, it's more of, I would call it a first impressions, because this is not really a final copy. I can't give you a final review. But I do have to say this. If I'm talking in terms of an awesome game, take out the biblical theme. I find this to be highly interesting because of all the ways that you can tailor your characters, like I said, like an RPG, and at the same time, you know, with the treasures, with the the different things, the different powers you can activate in game, the way that you set your party up. Again, it feels like an RPG to me. I can't keep saying that enough. It really feels like a dungeon crawler, but the skirmish mode, and I'll have to say this, I was a huge fan of like Star Wars Imperial Assault by FFG. The main problem with that game that I found was I could never get heavily into the campaign mode. I could just not keep my game group together week after week after week and just keep on pressing through. Sometimes you just can't do that. But what we could do at times was play the skirmish game. That's actually what saved that game from going on my shelf of goodbye, because I was able to play the skirmish game all the time. And I was able to outfit my characters the way I wanted. You know, I had Han Solo, Luke Skywalker. We could play, you know, somebody could play Darth Vader, Boba Fett. And the skirmish game saved it to the point where I was actually painting my miniatures, right? And I was like, this is an amazing game. This game kind of gave me a similar feel. Already, I understand a lot of, personally speaking, I understand a lot of the biblical lore because I've heavily gone into the Bible and studied it. And then at the same time, even if it wasn't like, even if I didn't know this stuff, the lore is represented on the back of many of the character cards, and you know, it's just represented in the game in different ways, and the lore helps you get deeper into what's going on, helps you to understand the setting more and how each character is going to add to the party that you build so that you can take it out and go, okay, you're going to be the healer, you're going to be the ranged person, but again, you can tailor those as you go with the different talents. So again, I love the modular feel in this game, that no game is ever really going to be the same, including the boards, how you can, you know, change those up however you want. And it's got a really good variety of different kinds of enemies to fight, and again, final bosses, and I can only see more being added if they can make that work. So yeah, I would highly recommend you check this game out. The Kickstarter should be launching pretty soon if it hasn't already. It should be by the time this video gets released, I'd imagine. It's supposed to be launching June, and I'm recording this early June, so it's probably already going. But I would highly recommend it, whether you care about the Bible or not. The game itself is solid, okay? It has got some awesome mechanics in it, and you can tell the Lowen Games, Andrew Lowen and his team, they spent years perfecting this engine, and again, some of it could change by the time you know, they finalize everything, but man, it's an engrossing experience. It really is. So I highly recommend it. At least go check it out for yourself, see what you think just from reading the rules and this, that, and the other. But I don't think this is one you should pass up, even if you don't necessarily care about the Bible. I think this is one that may appeal to a broader audience. I mean, just look at the dadgum artwork. It's amazing. Thank you so much for watching the Dice Odyssey. This has been a preview of Deliverance Spiritual Battles. You know, that's just my own little title I threw in, but Deliverance. Check it out on Kickstarter, and please, you know, like and subscribe, and comment down below. Tell me what you think of what you've seen. Have you had a chance to actually play it? Some people have maybe have tested it out before it released and all that. But give me an idea what you think. Thank you so much. You have a blessed day, and game away.